Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the TCS horizon, watching the stars through the main viewing window. 3 years he had been exploring the outer edge of known space, and still the galaxy surprised him. Today felt different, though. Something was wrong with the readings on his ship's computers. "Captain, we're getting some strange signals from the Kepler 442 system," said Dr. Lisa Carter, his science officer. She was a smart woman who had spent most of her life studying space. If she was worried, Jake paid attention. "What kind of signals?" Jake asked, walking over to her station. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. His crew of 43 people had been together for a long time, and they worked well as a team. "Energy readings that don't make sense. It's like something huge is out there, but our cameras can't see anything," Lisa said, pointing at the computer screen. "The energy is old, Captain. Really old." Lieutenant Ben Phillips, who handled navigation, looked up from his controls. "Should we investigate? We're supposed to be mapping this area anyway." Jake thought for a moment. They were far from any other human ships. If something went wrong, help would be days away. But finding something new was why they were out here. "Take us in slowly," Jake ordered. "Keep all sensors running. Amy, try to contact the other ships in our exploration group." Ensign Amy Rodriguez nodded and started working at her communication station. She was young but good at her job. "No response from the other ships, Captain. We might be too far away." The horizon moved toward the empty space where the energy readings were coming from. As they got closer, the readings got stronger. Lisa kept checking her instruments, her face showing more concern. "Captain, these energy levels are impossible," she said. "Whatever is out there is bigger than our largest battleships. Much bigger." Jake felt his heart beat faster. In 3 years of exploring, they had never found anything like this. Most of the galaxy seemed empty of intelligent life. Humans had spread to many star systems, but they were alone as far as anyone knew. "There," Ben said suddenly, pointing at the main screen. "Something's happening." Space in front of them began to change. The stars seemed to bend and twist. Then, slowly, shapes began to appear. At first they looked like shadows, but they became more solid as the seconds passed. "My God," Lisa whispered. Ships were appearing out of nothing. Not small ships, but massive warships that made the horizon look like a tiny bug. The first ship was dark gray with sharp angles and heavy armor. As more ships appeared, Jake counted them. 10, 20, 30 vessels, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. "Are they alien ships?" Amy asked, her voice shaking. Lisa was running every scan she could. "Captain, I don't think so. The metal they're made from, it's similar to what we use. And look at the design." Jake stared at the ships. Now that he looked closer, there was something familiar about them. The shape reminded him of old Earth military ships from history books, but these were much larger and clearly built for space travel. "Lisa, how old are these ships?" Jake asked. "The computer says the metal contains elements that are, this can't be right. It says they're over 50,000 years old." "That's impossible," Ben said. "Humans weren't even in space 50,000 years ago." "Wait," Amy said, working at her station. "I'm getting something. There's a transmission coming from the lead ship." "Put it on the main speakers," Jake ordered. Static filled the bridge, then a voice came through. It was speaking English, but with an old accent that Jake had only heard in ancient movies. "Unknown vessel. This is Commander Rick Hayes of the United Earth ship Defiant. Please identify yourself and state your mission in this sector." Jake looked at his crew. They all had the same shocked expression. "United Earth ship," he said quietly. "That's impossible. The United Earth government ended hundreds of years ago." "Captain," Lisa said, staring at her computer. "I'm reading life signs on those ships. Human life signs." Jake walked to the communication station. This was either the most important discovery in human history or the most dangerous situation they had ever faced. "Commander Hayes, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the Terran Colonial Alliance ship Horizon. We're on an exploration mission. Can you tell us where you've been?" "Your ships? They're very old." There was a long pause. Then Hayes' voice came back, sounding confused. Terran Colonial Alliance? I don't know that organization. Captain, what year is it? Jake felt cold. It's 2387 Earth calendar. Another long pause. That's impossible. We left Earth in 2156. We've only been on patrol for 8 months. Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. Captain, if their ships are really 50,000 years old, but they think they've only been gone 8 months. Time dilation, Jake finished. Something happened to them in time. More voices could be heard in the background of Hayes's transmission. People were arguing and shouting. Finally, Hayes came back on the radio. Captain Morrison, we need to talk. My science officer is telling me impossible things about time and space. Can we meet face to face? Jake looked at his crew. Ben was checking the weapons systems just in case. Amy was trying to send a message to other human ships. Lisa was still running scans on the mysterious fleet. Commander Hayes, we can meet, but I need to know something first. You said you were on patrol. What were you patrolling for? We were sent to investigate reports of hostile alien activity beyond the galactic rim. We found them, Captain. We found something terrible out there. We've been fighting them for months, but they're too strong. We had to use experimental technology to escape, but something went wrong. Jake felt his stomach drop. What kind of aliens? They're not like anything we imagined aliens would be. They don't want to trade or talk. They consume everything. Entire worlds, entire civilizations. They were heading toward Earth when we intercepted them. Lisa was shaking her head at her instruments. Captain, I'm detecting fresh battle damage on their ships. Energy burns from weapons I don't recognize. If they've been fighting something. Commander Hayes, Jake said into the radio, are you saying that whatever you were fighting is still out there? Captain Morrison, we didn't escape. We retreated. And if we've really been gone for thousands of years like you say, then they've had all that time to grow stronger. God help us all if they followed us back. The bridge of the horizon was completely quiet. Outside the window, the ancient human fleet hung in space like ghosts from humanity's past. Somewhere beyond them, in the darkness between the stars, something that had destroyed civilizations for millennia might be coming toward human space. Jake knew that everything was about to change. The quiet days of exploration were over. Humanity was about to face its greatest test, and their only help came from warriors who had been fighting that battle for 50,000 years. 5 days later, Admiral Susan Blake arrived with the largest fleet Jake Morrison had ever seen. 30 warships surrounded the ancient vessels, their weapons ready, but not aimed. Jake watched from the bridge of the horizon as the Admiral's flagship, the TCS Victory, moved into position. Captain Morrison, report to the Victory immediately, came the Admiral's voice over the radio. Bring Dr. Carter with you. Jake and Lisa took a small shuttle to the massive battleship. The Victory was 3 times larger than the Horizon, with enough weapons to destroy a small moon. But even it looked tiny next to the ancient ships floating. Nearby, Admiral Blake met them in the main conference room. She was a tall woman with gray hair and serious eyes. Jake had heard stories about her. She had fought in the border wars and never lost a battle. Captain Dr. Carter, meet Dr. Alex Turner, the Admiral said, pointing to a man with thick glasses and messy hair. He studies dead civilizations, and this is Colonel Pete Sanders from Colonial Intelligence. Dr. Turner looked excited, like a child with a new toy. Captain Morrison, this is the greatest discovery in human history. Ships from the early space age, preserved perfectly for 50,000 years. Do you understand what this means? It means we have a problem, Colonel Sanders said. He was a thin man who spoke quietly. These ships carry weapons we don't understand. They could be dangerous. Admiral Blake sat down at the head of the table. Captain Morrison, tell me everything that happened. Jake explained about finding the ships and talking to Commander Hayes. As he spoke, Dr. Turner took notes and asked questions. Colonel Sanders just listened with a worried expression. They want to meet with you, Admiral, Jake finished. Commander Hayes says he has information about the threat they were fighting. Have you scanned their ships thoroughly? Admiral Blake asked Lisa. Yes, Admiral. The technology is strange. Their ships look old, but some of their equipment is more advanced than ours. especially their engines and defensive systems. Dr. Turner leaned forward. Dr. Carter, what kind of power readings are you getting? Their reactors produce more energy than our largest power plants. But the design looks like something from 200 years ago. It doesn't make sense. Admiral Blake thought for a moment. Arrange the meeting, but we do it on neutral ground. One of our shuttles will meet one of theirs halfway between the fleets. 2 hours later, Jake found himself in a shuttle with Admiral Blake, Dr. Turner, and Colonel Sanders. Through the shuttle's window, he could see another shuttle approaching. It looked old-fashioned with thick armor and simple design. The two shuttles docked together in space. Jake felt nervous as the airlock opened. Whatever was on the other side would change everything. Commander Rick Hayes stepped through first. He was a man in his 40s with short brown hair and tired eyes. He wore a uniform that Jake recognized from history books. Behind him came a woman with the rank of major and a man who looked like an engineer. Admiral Blake, Hayes said, saluting in the old military style. Thank you for meeting with us. This is Major Kate Stevens, my second-in-command, and Lieutenant Dan Cooper, our chief engineer. Admiral Blake returned the salute. Commander Hayes, we need to understand what happened to you. Our records show no ships left Earth in your time, period. Hayes looked confused. Admiral, we were part of the first expeditionary fleet. 50 ships sent to investigate alien signals from beyond the galaxy. It was the biggest military operation in human history. Dr. Turner was writing everything down. Commander, our history books don't mention any such fleet. Are you sure about the date? March 15th, 2156, Major Stevens said. We launched from Luna Station. The whole world was watching. Colonel Sanders leaned forward. Commander, what exactly did you find out there? Hayes's expression became dark. We found hell, Colonel. Things that used to be civilizations but changed into something else. They call themselves the Devourers, but I don't think that's their real name. What do they want? Admiral Blake asked. Everything, Lieutenant Cooper said quietly. They don't just conquer planets. They absorb them. The people, the knowledge, the culture. Everything becomes part of them. Hayes continued. We found dead worlds everywhere. Some had been empty for millions of years. Others were still warm from the destruction. The Devourers moved slowly across the galaxy, taking their time to consume everything completely. Dr. Turner looked excited and terrified at the same time. How many of them are there? We don't know, Major Stevens said. Their ships are alive somehow. They grow instead of being built. Each one contains the absorbed knowledge of entire species. Commander, Admiral Blake said, you said you've been fighting them for 8 months. But our scans show your ships are 50,000 years old. How do you explain that? Hayes looked at Lieutenant Cooper, who nodded. Admiral, we were losing the battle. Our weapons couldn't stop them, and they kept coming. So we activated experimental time shields that Earth scientists had given us. Time shields? Lisa asked. Devices that were supposed to speed up time around our ships, Cooper explained. The idea was that we could fight faster, move faster, think faster than the enemy. But something went wrong, Hayes continued. The shields created time loops. We've been fighting the same battle over and over, experiencing months while the galaxy aged thousands of years around us. Colonel Sanders looked skeptical. That's impossible. Is it? Dr. Turner said. We've been working on time manipulation theory for decades. If they had working time technology 200 years ago. They didn't, Hayes said. The technology came from somewhere else. We found it on one of the dead worlds. The previous owners left it behind when the Devourers consumed them. Admiral Blake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, both fleets waited in the darkness of space. Commander, are you saying that the Devourers are still out there? Yes, Admiral. And they're coming. The time shields didn't just trap us. They slowed down the Devourer fleet too. But now that we're back in normal time, so are they. How long do we have? Jake asked. Major Stevens checked a device on her wrist. Based on their last known position and speed, maybe 2 weeks, maybe less. The shuttle became very quiet. Jake could hear the air recycling system and the distant hum of the engines. Everyone was thinking the same thing. How many ships? Colonel Sanders asked. When we retreated, we counted over 300, Hayes said. But they've had 50,000 years to grow. There could be thousands now. Admiral Blake turned back to the group. Commander, what do you recommend? Admiral, our ships are damaged from the long battle. Your ships are newer but smaller. Alone, neither of us can win. Together? Admiral Blake asked. Hayes looked at his officers, then back at the Admiral. Together, we might have a chance. But it will cost everything. The Devourers don't take prisoners, and they don't negotiate. Dr. Turner was still writing notes. Commander, could you show us this time technology? Maybe we can improve it, use it as a weapon? Lieutenant Cooper shook his head. Dr. Turner, the time shields nearly destroyed us. Using them as weapons could tear apart space itself. It might be our only option, Admiral Blake said grimly. As the meeting ended and both groups prepared to return to their ships, Jake realized that humanity was facing its greatest test. An enemy that had destroyed civilizations for millions of years was coming, and their only hope lay with ghost ships from the past and technology that might destroy them all. The alarm on the Victory woke Jake Morrison from a restless sleep. He had been dreaming about dark ships and dying worlds. For the past week, both fleets had been working together, trying to prepare for what was coming. Now something had changed. Jake rushed to the bridge where Admiral Blake was standing with Commander Hayes. Both looked worried as they stared at the main screen. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Mitchell, the Admiral's tactical officer, was pointing at red dots on the display. Long-range sensors picked them up 20 minutes ago, she said. They're still far away, but they're moving fast. Jake looked at the screen. The red dots were spread across space like a disease. There were so many of them that the computer had trouble counting. How many? Admiral Blake asked. Over 800 ships, Admiral. Maybe more. They're too far away to get exact numbers. Commander Hayes closed his eyes. 800. We only faced 300 before, and they nearly destroyed us. Dr. Alex Turner ran onto the bridge carrying a computer tablet. Admiral, I've been studying the data from Commander Hayes's ships. I found something important. What is it, Doctor? Admiral Blake asked. The Devourers aren't just conquering civilizations. They're collecting them. Each ship contains the absorbed knowledge and technology of every species they've consumed. They're not just getting bigger in number, they're getting smarter. Jake felt sick. How smart are we talking about? They've been doing this for millions of years, Dr. Turner said. They know the fighting styles of thousands of different species. They know every weapon, every strategy, every weakness. Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell looked up from her station. Admiral, we're getting reports from our outer colonies. The Devourers hit the Kepler 438 system 2 hours ago. The bridge became quiet. Kepler 438 had 3 million people living on 2 planets and several space stations. Any survivors? Admiral Blake asked quietly. No, Admiral. The system is completely dark. No radio signals, no life signs, nothing. Commander Hayes put his hand on the tactical display. That's how they work. They don't just destroy, they absorb. Every person, every piece of knowledge, every bit of technology becomes part of them. We need to evacuate the other colonies, Jake said. There's no time, Hayes replied. They're moving too fast and running won't help. They followed us across 50,000 years. They'll follow humanity to the end of the galaxy if they have to. Admiral Blake walked to the center of the bridge. How long until they reach the main human worlds? At their current speed, 4 days, Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell answered. Dr. Turner was working on his tablet again. Admiral, I've been analyzing the time shield technology from the ancient ships. Lieutenant Cooper was right. It's extremely dangerous, but I think I found a way to modify it. Into what? Admiral Blake asked. A temporal implosion device. If we can create a localized collapse in time, we might be able to trap the Devourer fleet in a timeline loop. Commander Hayes looked interested. Explain. Instead of speeding up time around our ships, we slow it down around theirs. Create a bubble where time moves so slowly that they're effectively frozen. Lieutenant Cooper, who had been quiet until now, shook his head. Dr. Turner, that would require enormous amounts of energy. and the device would have to be activated from inside the temporal field. Which means, Jake asked. Whoever activates it gets trapped too, Hayes said quietly. They'd be frozen in time forever. Admiral Blake studied the tactical display. The red dots representing the Devourer fleet were getting closer. How effective would this weapon be? If it works, it could trap their entire fleet, Dr. Turner said. But we'd need to get them all in the same area, and we'd need someone to sacrifice themselves to activate it. There's another problem, Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell said. We'd have to hold them off long enough to build and deploy this weapon. Our combined fleets are strong, but 800 Devourer ships. Jake looked at the numbers on the screen. The human fleets had 97 ships total. Even with the ancient vessels, they were outnumbered almost 10 to 1. We need a battlefield that gives us an advantage, Admiral Blake said. Commander Hayes thought for a moment. The Kepler defense line. It's a series of fortified systems with weapons platforms and defensive stations. Those defenses were built to stop human pirates, not this, Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell said. But the asteroid fields and nebulae could help hide our ships, Hayes replied. We could use hit-and-run tactics. Dr. Turner looked up from his work. I'll need at least 12 hours to modify the temporal devices. Can you hold them that long? Admiral Blake and Commander Hayes looked at each other. Both had fought many battles, but nothing like this. We'll have to, Admiral Blake said. Colonel Mitchell, send orders to all human military forces. Every ship, every weapon, every defensive platform, tell them to fall back to the Kepler defense line. What about the civilian populations? Jake asked. Start evacuation procedures, but don't tell them why. We don't want to cause panic. Over. The next 24 hours, ships began arriving at the Kepler defense line. Jake watched from the horizon as humanity's entire military force gathered. Battleships, destroyers, cruisers, and support vessels took positions among the asteroids and defensive platforms. The ancient human ships spread out among the modern fleet. Their dark hulls and strange weapons made them look like ghosts among the newer vessels. But Jake was glad they were there. Without them, humanity would have no chance at all. Dr. Turner worked without sleeping, assisted by both modern and ancient engineers. The temporal implosion device was taking shape in the engineering bay of the Victory. It looked like a metal sphere covered in strange symbols and glowing components. It's ready, Dr. Turner announced on the second day. But I need to warn everyone. When this activates, the temporal effects will be visible across several star systems. Anyone caught in the outer edges might experience time distortion. Commander Hayes volunteered immediately. My crew and I will carry the device. We've been trapped in time before. We can do it again. Rick, no, Major Stevens said. There has to be another way. Kate, we've been fighting this battle for 50,000 years. It's time to end it. Admiral Blake looked at the device. How close do we need to get? The device needs to be within 1,000 kilometers of the center of their fleet, Dr. Turner said. And all the enemy ships need to be in the same general area. That means we need to make them chase us, Jake realized. Yes, Hayes said. We make ourselves the bait. Draw them into the kill zone, then activate the device. Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell was monitoring the long-range sensors. Admiral, the Devourer fleet just entered the outer edge of our sensor range. They'll be here in 18 hours. Jake felt his heart beating fast. In less than a day, humanity would either win its greatest victory or face complete extinction. All ships, this is Admiral Blake, came the announcement over the fleet communication system. Prepare for battle. Remember, we're not just fighting for our own lives. We're fighting for every human who ever lived and every human who might be born. We're fighting for the right to exist in this galaxy. As the hours passed, Jake watched the red dots on the sensor display get closer. Soon, humanity would face an enemy that had destroyed civilizations for millions of years. Their only hope was an ancient fleet that had been fighting this battle across time itself, and a weapon that might destroy them all. The Devourer fleet appeared at the edge of the Kepler system like a dark cloud covering the stars. Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the horizon as 800 alien ships moved toward them. Each vessel looked different, as if they had been grown rather than built. Some were long and twisted like giant worms. Others were round with spikes coming out in all directions. "My God," Dr. Lisa Carter whispered. "They're enormous. The largest Devourer ships were 10 times bigger than anything humans had ever built." Their hulls seemed to move and change shape as Jake watched. It was like looking at living nightmares made of metal and flesh. "All ships, this is Admiral Blake," came the voice over the radio. "Remember the plan. We draw them into the asteroid field, then Commander Hayes activates the temporal device." Jake could see the ancient human ships moving into position. The U.S. Defiant led 36 other vessels from humanity's forgotten past. Their dark hulls and strange weapons looked primitive next to modern ships, but Jake knew they were humanity's best hope. "Enemy ships are opening communication channels," reported Amy Rodriguez from her station. "Put it on the main speakers," Admiral Blake ordered from the Victory. A voice filled the bridge, but it wasn't one voice. It sounded like dozens of different species speaking at the same time. Some parts were in languages Jake had never heard. Other parts were in perfect English. "Humans of the Terran Colonial Alliance," the voice said. "We are the collective. We have absorbed the knowledge of 10,000 civilizations across 5 million years. You cannot resist us. You cannot escape us. Surrender now and become part of something greater." Admiral Blake's voice came back strong and clear. "This is Admiral Susan Blake of the Human Military Forces. We've heard that offer before from other tyrants. Our answer is the same as always. Go to hell." The alien voice seemed amused. "Admiral Blake, we know of your species' history. We have absorbed others like you. Your courage is admirable but pointless. You will become part of us whether you agree or not." "Then come and take us," Commander Hayes said, breaking into the transmission. "We've been waiting 50,000 years for this fight." The communication ended. For a moment, space was quiet except for the hum of ship engines and the beating of human hearts. Then the battle began. The Devourer ships moved forward like a living wave. Their weapons were unlike anything Jake had seen. Beams of energy that seemed to tear holes in space itself. Projectiles that followed targets no matter how they tried to dodge. The human fleet met them at the edge of the asteroid field. Modern ships used their speed and advanced weapons to strike quickly and retreat. The ancient vessels fought differently, using their strange temporal technology to appear and disappear like ghosts. Jake watched the UES Defiant phase in and out of normal time, attacking the same enemy ship from multiple angles simultaneously. It was like watching one ship fight as 10. "Captain," Ben Phillips called out, "we're being targeted by 3 enemy vessels." "Evasive maneuvers," Jake ordered. "Take us into the asteroid field." The horizon twisted between giant rocks as enemy. Weapons lit up the space around them. Jake could see other human ships doing the same thing, leading the Devourer fleet deeper into the trap. "Admiral Blake to all ships," came the radio transmission. "Phase 1 complete. Enemy fleet is entering the kill zone." Jake looked at his tactical display. Most of the Devourer ships were now inside the asteroid field, exactly where they needed to be for the temporal weapon to work. "Commander Hayes, you are clear to proceed," Admiral Blake said. On the main screen, Jake could see the UES Defiant moving toward the center of the enemy formation. The ancient ship was taking heavy fire from all sides, but it kept moving forward. "This is Commander Rick Hayes," came his voice over the radio. "It's been an honor serving with you all. Kate, Dan, everyone on my crew, thank you for 50,000 years of faithful service." Major Stevens's voice came back, full of emotion. "Rick, we're with you to the end." The Defiant reached the center of the Devourer fleet. Jake could see the temporal device being activated as space around the ancient ship began to bend and twist. But something went wrong. "The temporal field is expanding too fast," Dr. Turner shouted over the radio from the Victory. "It's going to consume the entire battle area." Jake felt cold fear run through him. If the temporal field kept growing, it would trap all the human ships too. "All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance," Admiral Blake ordered. But many ships were too close. The horizon was barely at the edge of the field when Jake felt time begin to slow around them. "Captain, we're caught in the temporal distortion," Lisa said, her voice sounding strange and stretched. Jake watched as the Devourer ships in the center of the field began to freeze in time. Their weapons stopped firing. Their hulls stopped moving. They became like statues made of metal and flesh, but the field was still growing. "This is Hayes," came the commander's voice, now echoing strangely through time. "I can contain the field, but it will take all our remaining power. We'll be trapped forever, but we can stop it from spreading." "Rick, don't do it," Admiral Blake said. "We'll find another way." "Admiral, there is no other way. This is what we were sent to do 50,000 years ago. This is our mission." Jake watched as the ancient human ships used their last bit of energy to create a barrier around the temporal field. The UES Defiant and its sister ships became bright points of light as they poured all their power into containing the weapon. Space around the Devourer fleet began to crystallize. What had once been 800 living ships became a sphere of frozen time, beautiful and terrible to look at. The ancient human fleet was trapped inside with them, locked forever in the moment of their greatest victory. "It's done," came Hayes's final transmission, his voice fading as time stopped around him. "The threat is ended. Tell humanity we kept our promise." The battle was over. The Devourer fleet was trapped in frozen time, and the ancient human ships were trapped with them. Jake looked at the crystal sphere floating in space and felt both victory and loss. "All ships report status," Admiral Blake said quietly. One by one, the surviving human ships checked in. They had lost many vessels, but most of the fleet remained. More importantly, humanity was safe. "Admiral," Dr. Turner said over the radio, "the temporal field is stable. The Devourers are trapped permanently. They can never escape." Jake thought about Commander Hayes and his crew, fighting the same battle for 50,000 years, only to be trapped forever at the moment of victory. They would never see their families again, never know if their sacrifice meant anything. But humanity was alive because of them. "Admiral Blake to all ships," came the announcement. "Set course for home. We have families to return to and a civilization to rebuild." As the human fleet began the journey back to inhabited space, Jake took one last look at the crystal sphere. Inside that frozen moment, humanity's first heroes were locked in eternal battle, holding the line against an enemy that had threatened the galaxy for millions of years. "Captain," Amy said quietly, "should we mark this location?" Jake nodded. "Yes, and we'll tell everyone what happened here. The story of the ships older than empires and the people who saved us all." Years later, the crystal sphere became humanity's most sacred monument. People came from across the galaxy to see where the ancient fleet made their final stand. And somewhere in that frozen moment of time, Commander Rick Hayes and his crew continued their eternal watch, making sure that the darkness would never again threaten the worlds they had sworn to protect.